Hey, folks, thanks for tuning into this episode of Real Talk Fishing with No Limits. I'm Brian Bashore. I'll be your host, and today we're sitting down with Aaron Ambur of Nexus Outdoors. We're going to talk a little bit about softline hunting and fishing apparel. Aaron is the president of Whitewater Fishing. Basically, Nexus Outdoors, they got a lot of brands. We're going to focus on the whitewater fishing gear. I just got some myself. It is some pretty awesome stuff. And just a little bit about outdoors, fishing, hunting in general. Aaron's from South Dakota originally, so we'll touch on that and just some other cool things, man. So stay tuned, follow along. Let's see what Aaron's got to say. Hey, and quickly, just a shout out. We just got back from the Omaha Boat Sport and Travel Show. So all of you that stopped by, thank you for all booking your trips for the year. Thank you to all that talked about the podcast and how you're enjoying it and the YouTube and everything like that. So that means a lot. Scott and I and Randy had a blast talking to everybody, talking fishing. But now it's fishing season. The river is open. It's time to go. So, but let's listen in on Aaron Ambur with Nexus Outdoors on this here podcast. Hey, folks, Brian here with the Real Talk Fishing podcast. Today, I'm joined with our special guest, Aaron Ambur from Nexus Outdoors, which encompasses a plethora of brands, and we're going to dig right into that. So we'll just get wet a line, as I like to say, and just dig down deep here with Aaron and get going. So what's going on up in your neck of the woods there, man?
Hey, good afternoon, Brian. I tell you what, I think spring and winter and summer, I think it's all mixed up right now. I had a buddy of mine from actually Sioux Falls text me over the weekend. He says, is your boat ready to go to Lake Erie yet? And I'm like, no, it's not. He says, well, go over to this YouTube channel and watch these guys killing these walleyes. So it's crazy. It's been unseasonably warm. We're actually in Michigan, near the Grand Rapids area, and it's been a crazy spring. We've just had unbelievable warm weather. This is the second year now we have not been out even ice fishing, and the guys that go snowmobiling in the UP, that's not happening either. And nope. I think I talked to one guy that the other night that he said it had been since 1995 was the first time they weren't snowmobiling in the UP of Michigan this time of year. So crazy really? Weather, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's, I think it's supposed to be 70 here in Sioux Falls today, and we're at the Omaha Boat Sport and Travel Show over the weekend, and you want nice weather. You don't want ice and blizzards, but you don't want it too nice neither, because you don't want everybody outside doing yard work and cleaning their garages. You want them to come to the sports show. So we're a little worried because it was absolutely beautiful yesterday, 60-something and no wind, but it was still crowded. And I think we had a lot of wind on Saturday. So that kept the crowd, which was huge, moving through there. But the river's packed. The river's open here. I got a text yesterday morning. We had like 18 boats out at Gavin's Point, and I don't even know how many are in Chamberlain. Put a boat dock or a boat dock in there today, so there's probably 100. And we got a pretty nice weekend coming up. I mean, it's only Monday, but forecast looks good for the weekend, and I kick off guiding this weekend, and we're full for the next however many days, and it's go time. And like you said, those guys at Erie they're putting the screws to those fish right now out there.
Yeah, I mean, and as you know, that place is pretty special. I mean, so I'm a farm and ranch kid. I grew up in South Dakota, and I grew up in Presho, South Dakota. You know where Presho's at, right?
Yep.
So I grew up on a farm and ranch south of Presho, about probably 20 miles from town, and it's just crazy to think that, I'm talking to a Sioux Falls guy today, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, I grew up on the Missouri River fishing and cut my teeth on walleye, whether it was, Lake Sharp, or it was up at Lake Wahi or Francis Case even, and the Lake Erie. I'll tell you what, one thing that I'll tell you special is when you have a fishery like that. I mean, no snags, suspended fish, sand bottom. Trolling, if you love to troll. I mean, we do a few different things over there, but it's pretty special to know that. I mean, you feel like a damn professional when you're fishing in Lake Erie.
I know, right? Everybody's catching them, and you're right. The boat's clean, right? If you're trolling, pulling open water and pulling offshore boards, you get done at the end of the day, and you're like, I don't really have to get anything ready for tomorrow. I didn't lose anything. I don't need to tie up stuff. I've just put it away and off we go, and it's clean, right? And yeah, when you're reeling in 6 to 8 and 9 pound walleye all day, you're like, I'm an expert at this, man. I got this dialed in. But
We even laugh about, when during the summer, about second week of June, call it June 10th, when on Lake Erie, when we start pulling meat. It's amazing. So think about the Missouri River, right? How I grew up bottom bouncing
right.
and fishing structure on the bluffs, and I can't tell you the number of times I even had to change a hook on a spinner rig, because
Yep.
usually it was like you were snagging them, breaking them off, so it seemed like you always had a pretty new hook.
Yep.
But it's crazy. I just went through a bunch of stuff over the winter and went through a bunch of crawler harnesses, and how many hooks go bad by nature just catching fish and not
Right.
snagging up. It's
You're
pretty
like,
crazy,
I either got to sharpen these or just replace them, but they're not self-replaceable because I didn't lose them on anything. So yeah, we kick our season off. First tournament of our National Walleye Tour season on Erie this year. So looking forward to that. And it sounds like registrations are coming in super fast on the co-angler side. I think it's full, whatever full is. Seems to be a pretty big demand for it. So that's good. It's good for the sport that all that's there, and get to go out there and, we're going to beat up on some fish. So, with the best sticks around, and you got a lot of those guys on your Whitewater team over. We got Chase and we got Gary and
Tommy
Corey,
Chemos and
Chemos.
Matty Schiefelbein. And that's going out of Port Clinton. So I'm actually going to head down there and pre-fish some of those guys. And it'll be interesting. I've not spent a lot of time on Erie that early in the season, because what's that, mid-April, about right in there.
Yep.
And so it'll be interesting what the fish are doing. I know what they're doing right now, and I'm sure that bite will be very similar. I'm sure it'll be P10s and bandits and out there trolling for them. But some people might go jig on some reefs too.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can definitely go jig those reefs and catch males, all day long. And I've got some decent sized males, but that's not comparable to a female. If they're just depending on if they're post spawn or if there's still some that are spawning. So I'm guessing a majority of them will be post spawn by then, but no, it's mid-April. That's kind of when all that stuff takes place. It is fun though. But it really
Port Clinton. Have you fished at Port Clinton area quite a bit?
Yeah, just we've had a few. I've only been there for NWT tournaments. I think we've had a couple in around this time, around April. I don't know if we've ever gone out of Port Clinton though. We always go to Sandusky or Huron or something like that. But we fished that Port Clinton area. Those islands are loaded with fish, moving up in them reefs. It's just all about water clarity and temperature up there. And if you get too much wind, it sounds like today it was pretty stained, and it's finding the perfect combination of temperature and clarity. And then those fish are just they're moving, right? They swim. They got fins. People forget sometimes that we whacked them here yesterday, and you roll in, they're like, they're a couple miles away from there today. A hard wind moved from the north or northwest and changed things. So, but with our electronics nowadays, they can't hide.
Yeah,
you just may burn a little fuel looking for them.
Yeah, I just like the islands there where there's a lot of current. You have a lot of things going on there, and obviously you can start checking satellite image when you get close to it. Just to pin, how stained the water is. That time of year, it's just a matter of how much is running off. But now this year, with it rather mild, it may be a lot clearer water at this time of year than it typically probably is, with the Maumee River usually flooding that west end of the bay and making it, or Lake Erie, I should say, and making it dirty. It's really hard to know what's going to happen this year.
Yeah, I'm anticipating some cleaner than normal water because all the runoff should be done. We're still going to get some snow. We got some coming. I mean, it's 70 today. We're expecting like 29 tomorrow and windy, and then back up in the 50s and 60s, and then snow Monday, and then back up in the 40s and upper 50s. But same here, the river is the runoff aspect of it's already kind of done and pushed all that through over the last couple of weeks. So now it's just going to clean up, which is going to make that fishing, really, really fire. They've still got a little bit of ice up north on Oahe. Tailwaters are good, and you can go from pier way past Farm Island and down quite a bit. A lot of boats, guys are wrecking them. But I talked to the guys up in northern Oahe over the week, and they said they still had about 15 inches, but I think it's probably going to go pretty quick, especially if you start moving any water.
It was interesting how many big fish were caught up there in open water this year. It was pretty surprising. I don't know if that's just a result of nicer weather and people being able to get out and fish that time of year, in which people typically don't. I don't know what your read is on that, but
Yeah.
what state records back to back, kind of in the same time frame, right?
Yeah, we knew it was probably holding those records there, and still feel that there's more. There's even bigger ones. There was more than normal, for one, because it was beautiful and it was nice, even longer. Most of those were October, November is usually. I mean, people know if you want to target a big one, that's a good time to go up there. Gabe out of New Everett stays real busy up there that time of year. And when you pop one state record, it gets a little bit busier. And then you get
Yeah.
another state record a week later, it gets even a little bit busier than that. So definitely there was some good crowds, but I went up there and fished it once. And I think I was there when Kimos was up there shooting the show with Chad Schilling. And I didn't get any of the big ones, but I didn't get there till late in the morning. And it apparently was a morning bite for some of those bigger fish. It's definitely worth the drive, but stay overnight, get out there, get on them early. And it may happen again next year. So
Yeah.
anticipate there's going to be a lot of pressure on it. But like I said, depends. We might be, and who knows what the weather's going to be in October, November. And, this year they're out there until pretty much around Christmas. So,
Yeah, that's one thing about the predictability of South Dakota. The only predictability is that it's unpredictable. The weather.
exactly.
You've
You've
lived
been
there
here,
long.
you know it.
Yeah, you've lived there long enough to know how that works there. So
Yep, like I said.
definitely miss the Missouri River system, though. It's a
Yep.
great river system.
It is. It's a beautiful place, and pressure where your area you're from out there. I mean, just the deer, the prairie, the pheasants. You're great pheasant. Excuse me, I'm a little hoarse from the show this weekend. The pheasants numbers are good. We're having a good spring. This is going to help obviously considerably. So I mean, anticipate another good, broad hatch next year. So.
Yeah, I grew up, as I mentioned earlier, in the farm south of Presho there, and it was, I suppose, the early '80s, probably 1980, right in there, where my dad started pheasant guiding, and he was a big outdoorsman, on a farm and ranch. I still think I was abused as a kid, but I'd tell you one thing I love about my mom and dad, and especially my dad, as hard as we worked is as hard as we played. And I don't care if it was, him going to stock ponds and catching
Right.
bass, or if it was up on the Missouri River fishing. So, we had a lot of great times fishing Missouri River. And, back to the diversity, it was just so amazing. I mean, from antelope and mule
Yeah.
deer. I grew up hunting on the White River, whether it was mule deer hunting or whitetail hunting with bow and arrow. Turkeys weren't a big deal when I was growing up, just not as many turkeys as there seem to be now.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of birds out there now.
Yeah, even like waterfowl growing up, I used to jump a bunch of stock dams to kill ducks, and we would rarely ever see geese. And I can't believe how that country's changed now. Where we occasionally, my dad always we had a dozen Bigfoot decoys. I forget when we got those. For always throw them up in a cornfield for maybe a flock that would fly over.
Yeah.
But that country's changed a lot. I guess last time I lived in South Dakota was in the late 1990s. And but I sure miss the variety and the resourcefulness of the state. Not to mention, the politics are great there and people are great, and I sure miss it a lot.
Yep. People are good here. That's what you come here for, hunting and fishing. There's obviously a whole lot of other things to do, but outside of the ag, industry, that's it. That's your number one economic driver. So everybody gets behind it because it's, especially these small towns, that's how they thrive. Pheasant is big, obviously, but the glacial lakes, there's a lot of small towns up there, and there's a lot of, good handful of fishing guides up there, and they keep those mom and pop shops open, those little motels and bait shops and restaurants. And without it's nothing. This place would just, be a little bit of a ghost town. So, and the river, obviously up and down the river, is just a phenomenal place for anything you want to do, hunting and fishing. And there's, Lewis and Clark's got a ton of boat recreational stuff on it. They all do. But those reservoirs are so big, you can get away from it. You don't have to drive far to get away from the sailboats and the jet skis and, and what have you. And you're going to catch fish from one end to the other darn near any time of the year.
Yeah.
It's tough to beat.
Well, I always appreciate that about South Dakota. The park systems. I mean, I've been around to a lot of states, Brian.
Yep.
I know you travel a lot. Well, I can't believe how well maintained the park systems are, and the boat ramps and fish clean stations. And then say the general service economy, people knew in South Dakota a long time ago that we were a state that if you're going to do well, you had to be great at customer service. And we were always a tourism state. And I think that's part of the genetic structure. And I don't know what it is today, but always really good people in service businesses, whether it's the parks, the public sort of things, or if it's the private enterprise. People know that tourism pays the bills, and I think that sets up really well if you're visiting the state, just really being taken care of.
Yeah, we had to talk with my wife last night, and then over the weekend with some of the resort owners that our tourism spends a lot of money. We just had a Super Bowl commercial played in a regional ad, and if you're not telling people about it, though, they don't know. I mean, outside of Mount Rushmore, but even some people, she talked to somebody the other day in Indiana she was in a conference, and guys like, what's in South Dakota? She's like, you really don't even know, and I think it was, I don't remember who it was, Joe Rogan's podcast or somebody, but they thought Mount Rushmore was in North Dakota or Wyoming or something.
Yeah,
they're
something
off
like
a little
that.
bit, and it's like, no, wrong. So you got to keep telling them, and they're doing a good job of telling the story. By all means, I think they had record numbers reported this year from last year on the tourism coming in, and the parks are. My wife travels all over, with me, and she's done a lot of camping and blogging for that stuff. And everywhere she goes, she's like, "There's nothing compared to Lewis and Clark's, where I mainly guide, and that state park is huge. It's clean. The bathrooms are functioning, and fish cleaning stations you touched on. Those are most states don't even have those.
Well, think about Nebraska. I spent 17 years there, and I know you grew up there. I mean, just think of the lack of. I mean, this is not a jab; these are just facts. A lack of amenities at these state parks in Nebraska. I mean, I spent a lot of time in Lake McConaughey, and we still don't have a fish cleans. I mean, there's a couple of fish cleans, but nothing like you'd expect, and it's too bad because that's one of the experiences that you want people to have. You want to roll in the state with the locals or out-staters and just have a great experience, Yeah,
and unfortunately for Nebraska, they're not going to be getting anytime soon. So their governor's doing a little tax reform. I got a lot of info yesterday because they're supposed to be building some new parks, a whole bunch of new stuff at McConaughey, and they just slashed their budget in half on the park side. So too bad for Nebraska. Too bad for Nebraska campers and anglers. Good for South Dakota, I guess, because you're all going to start coming up here. So everybody, when I get done, guiding and go clean their fish, people are just like, "What's this thing?" Like fish cleaning station. They're just like, "Wow, this is so handy. This is so nice. I wish we had one of these." And even in smaller lakes in Minnesota, but a lot of those, I explain to people that other friends, I'm like, they don't have them because a lot of the municipalities own those boat ramps, right? And they're a real pain in the butt to maintain and stay on top. We figured it out here to put oversized grinders and stuff like that, and South Dakota just has a lot of the COs that are able to check on them, and the anglers will let you know right away when they're not working. So because they're like, "Hey, this thing's crap, it doesn't work. Get out here, it stinks, it's all backed up," and they'll pretty much have it fixed in 24 hours if they got the parts, or just got to stick something down to unplug it. So
one crazy thing too, the anglers' expectations are that they work.
Right.
Compared to other places where they don't even call them in. It's like, wow, these things never work anyway.
Right? They're junk. They don't ever work. It's just whatever. They just throw them in a trash can or on a bucket and move on. Unfortunately, a lot of times, it's cold up here, so they don't open them until a little bit later because they don't want the water obviously to freeze and break the lines, and they close them early. So, I carry the bubble blade and a fillet maker, fillet board, and a bucket in the back of the truck. So you got to clean them on the fly in early spring and late fall. But they did they built the indoor fish cleaning station by American Creek at Francis Case now. So that thing's open year round. And I'm sure there was a line getting in there to use the yesterday, but it's big. I mean, you can have 4 or 5 groups of, fishermen around the table cleaning your fish, and everybody around here cleans fish pretty quick. So
yeah, that's good. We used to put in an Iron Nation a lot.
Oh, okay.
And and I don't know if they ever got it. Of course, that's a reservation owned, so I don't know how that whole thing works. But
I haven't been there for a long time, but I haven't seen one.
Yeah, for sure.
I know you got to get a special license to use it since it's on the reservation. And I used it once, got online, got the thing, went in there. But yeah, it was fine parking lot and a boat ramp. That's all I needed, because that was what kind of central Lake Sharp.
Yep.
So
yeah, I'd have to learn to come back. A couple things I'd have to learn. I don't think we ever had a tribal license back in the day. And then I talked to my cousins who farm in South Dakota, in Presho area, hell, I don't even know if I can run a tractor these days. I'm getting texts from my cousin on the tractor. I'm like, aren't you supposed to be combining? Oh, I am. And from auto steer this to auto steer
Right.
that to he is pulling memory cards on grain carts the other day when I was back,
Yeah.
and they're looking at all the bushels that went through the grain cart. I'm like, what? Memory cards for
Memory cards. That's where we put our fish finders, man. I don't. What are you talking about? Yeah, they sit back and they take their laptops and they watch movies, and the comp with the tractor, whatever, just does. You got to be in it in case something gets off its rocker, so you can fix it. But it's sit back and make sure things working.
Yeah, and I even remember
Amazing.
growing up, I went back. So I remember my dad, he got to basically use my grandpa's boat, and it was an old tri-hull boat. And it was probably I don't know, 16 and a half, 17-foot tri-hull with a Mercury engine on it. And I remember sitting in that thing in the barn or the shop, and we were rewiring it because everything gets destroyed, and rewiring it. And I remember sitting in that tri-hull boat, which we caught tons of walleye out of, and no fish finder. And I remember we had the first Minn Kota, the twist handle Minn Kota, C clamped on the back of the boat. And I thought I was living large, though.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was so much fun. And my Uncle Paul, he used to take us out fishing, and we were always like, he had one way to do it. We always had to stay so far from the shore. It's like, and you can, as you can sight bluffs where it's going to dip down, and he's like, we're just like, oh, that's how we do it, I guess. It's prior to electronics, and so I'm dating myself here, but just had a lot of fond memories of South Dakota, and some great things there for sure.
You just don't. Now you got five. 3 screens on the front, and certainly don't have the clip-on trolling motor anymore, right? I mean, it's a self-navigating trolling motor. We got forward-facing. I mean, like I said, they can't hide, as long as you know how to run this stuff. But it also, you're not in we're not into this thing for $5,000 or a couple $1,000. You're, $100-some-thousand price tag on these gadgets to go chase little fish around.
Yeah, one of the guys that we have a really good relationship with is Jay Shakurat. So Jay Shakurat fishes the Bassmaster Elite Series, and he was a rookie 2 years ago, and that's when he won the St. Lawrence River, and he had over 100 pounds of smallmouth, which is the first time the Century Club had been broke for smallmouth. And
crushed him.
He crushed him. He's a great young stick, and is interesting as watching the Bassmaster Classic. So they just got done with the tournament in Louisiana, and there's quite a bit of clamoring going on. Davey was talking about just this forward-facing sonar that, some of these guys have 20-inch screens now on their boat. 20-inch screens, Brian.
I know.
That one guy has, there's a new goggle being made, or glass that shows the forward-facing sonar in the glass itself, so he doesn't have to look down. One can continue to cast at the fish. And I don't know what's going to happen with, there's so much money into electronics with these big screens and now glasses. And I'll be very interested to see how, the Bass organization handles that. It's really a complicated, divisive issue in the fishing world today.
Yeah. Randy Blockenit, or whatever, how you pronounce his name, YouTuber, former bass guy himself, and fishes, derbies, is raising a lot of awareness and stink around it. And he's obviously not for it and thinks it needs to be banned. And, allegedly, according to Bass and others, they did the survey, and majority of them, I don't know, I didn't get to see the survey, but said, yeah, let's get rid of it. But they said there's just not enough information out there. Is it affecting the fishery? Is it not? We don't know. It's only been around like 6 years, the last 2 or 3. Now it's to the point where everybody has it because you have to have it to compete, more or less. If you don't, especially the bass, if you don't have it, you're not in that top 10, top 20, unless it is a sight fishing tournament or they're on the bed or up shallow, because they're finding fish where they never fished before. These fish, just like the weekend, they were all running walleye rigs. We've been doing that forever, throwing a 1/4 ounce jig head into 3-inch, minnow plastic, and they call swooping, whooping, and mopping or whatever. Like, we call that pitching jigs to walleyes. They've always been there, but you can whip that deep, you can whip that shallow, and you can run them on your 2D and what have you. But 80% of those fish never got pressured. But now those fish are all going to start to get pressured. Now the 20 that are on the bank aren't getting pressured. So, is it going to flip flop around? And then you got young anglers who don't necessarily didn't learn from kind of the school of hard knocks on seasonal patterns and, and this and that. They know how to find them with forward facing sonar. And if you take that tool away, some have even said, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fish without this type deal. But I don't know, it was Davey, or it might have been Davey Height that was on. Sebastian put a committee together, right? You probably heard that too. If you watched the Elite Series over the weekend with, the owners and probably James Hall and some of the other, higher ups there, interviewing every boat that came off last day of practice, every angler, keeping notes or writing down, who's got what graphs, how big a graphs, and then how many of these, because guys are putting, 2 of them up on the front and they can have a couple on the back. How many forward facing transducers do you have? What size of graphs? Okay, and did you use this today? And was it effective? And and that. And they said they're going to basically ask these questions at every tournament, get all the information so they can make an educated decision before next season. I don't think you're going to see any changes this year with anything. Pretty much all tournament rules are set in stone for all the circuits this year. So it is going to be interesting and worth following along. And it's taken a lot of the air out of all the fishing industry, really, because it's just a constant, discussion point. But just accept
they're not even casting right now unless they see a fish, which is crazy.
Right.
It's like sitting in a tree stand waiting for a deer versus everything's spot and stock, and you're only getting out of the truck and going to the hill if there's something there. I mean, it's a very precise measure. And Brian, as you know, you fished NWT. That's changing the way people are fishing walleye. I mean, it's you might think about that Sault Ste. Marie tournament, and it's the younger guns. It's a spot and stock guys that with forward facing sonar, where I mean they're fishing walleye like they're bass fishing. Not that we didn't always go pursue walleye with a jig in our hand and go cast to them, but right now it's just back to visibility and know what you're casting at, even seeing the type of fish that you're casting to.
Man, I'm definitely not good enough on it to be like, oh, that's a wall. I got a Humminbird Mega Live in it, and it works great. But obviously, there's the active target and the Garmin, and and everybody's got their own preference. But guys tell me, well, I can tell you what kind it is. I'm like, I can just tell it's not a rock, it's a fish because it's moving, so that's good enough for me. But I couldn't tell you how big it is, But now they are like, that's why they're not casting. I don't want to waste a cast, and then all of a sudden, I'm working it back, and here comes a big one, and I got to crank it in quick and throw it back out there because a lot of times they only get one shot at that fish. They're getting educated, and you're going to throw it past it and work it by, and it's either going to take it or it's not, and it's out of there. So it's just patience and looking for that one that you want. MLF format, when you're catching as many as possible, that's a little different. But bass, when you're going for 5 big ones and you can pick out those 5, it's changed the game, for sure. So I think in the next few years, it's gonna, if it doesn't have changes to it, or they allow it or don't allow it, or maybe they limit the size of the screen and then limit the amount of transducers, you're probably going to see a lot of new names. We're already kind of seeing that these young guys coming up, they're making it into the elites fast. This guy just jumped in the opens, and in 1 year, bam, he made it. And that's not how it used to be at all. So
no, it's back to what you said. It used to be, the veteran guys used to be leading a lot of those because they did something you mentioned earlier in the conversation. They understood patterns, they understand where the fish migrate through the season, and there was only one way to get that is through a lot of experience. Yeah, there'd be a lucky guy here or there, but I tell you what, it's really flipped it upside down. It's flipped the water over for sure.
Yeah, but everybody has always asked me, like, well, how do I do this? I'm like, it's nothing beats time on the water. I'm like, the best education, the best anything is time on the water, whether it's that same body of water every day. I got on a system that's a little bit tougher for most, and I take a lot of locals out, and they're like, I've been doing this for 20 years. I can't catch crap, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, it's a river. Just because it's called a lake, just like all these reservoirs, I'm like, it's a river. You have to make adjustments for current. I'll take them out, and we'll go to the same spot they've been going for 20 years, and I'll just do it. There's something a little different. And they're like, I can't believe it. I wasn't, I've been missing this. And I'm just like, it's time on the water. You're out here every day. I know where these fish are coming and going. And unfortunately, this system isn't like Francis' case where I can go to the same spot every year at the same time and do the same thing. Lewis and Clark is, you got them there this year, but you're not going to get them there for the next 3 years because it's a lot smaller system and more current. But time on the water and what you got going on over there with Whitewater is creating some soft apparel to make it easier for us to have all this time on the water. Let's dig into some of that a little bit.
Yeah, well, appreciate talking about the brand a little bit. So we launched Whitewater Fishing last, or I guess it'd be two and a half years ago. So I'm the president of Nexus Outdoors. So within Nexus Outdoors, we own a handful of brands. So we own Scent Lock hunting apparel. Your listeners probably have heard of that.
Oh
We
yeah,
acquired Scent Blocker hunting apparel a couple years ago. We also own a brand called Hardcore Waterfowl, which makes decoys and waterfowl gear. Whitewater Fishing, and I think I'm missing one or two. Tool Gear, which
cool.
is a Western hunting brand. So, we have a DNA here and over 100 years of experience of product development expertise, and we put that to work in the fishing category in whitewater fishing. And I think we're doing some pretty incredible things there, Brian, that have not been done before. Because I grew up in the age of, Cabela's guide gear.
Yep.
I liken it to a 1-ton truck. I mean, it like guide gear is like a 1-ton truck. It's great, but it's so well built, and you know what the ride is in a 1-ton
Yep.
truck, right?
Right. It's
So
rough.
some of the details that we took into this brand is said, how do we be a more mobile brand, a mobile friendly brand, which means great fit, great stretch. We're the first fishing brand, and I know all the brands that literally put stretch in the fabric. So I don't care if you're jumping or a gun over boat. You're getting down to pick up a jig off the floor. You're netting a fish. There's a lot of athletic activities we do. Not to mention the earlier conversation we said about a lot more casting going on than
Yeah.
even trolling. So we really took that DNA of understanding fabric development, understanding fit, and really try to make sure that those garments that we have in our assortment are friendly to, I would say, a person that's active in the boat. Because Brian, you understand this is that the more every time you lift your leg or lift your arm, you're creating friction, if you will, potentially with fabric. So what we try to do is to make sure that we make it easy for you to cast, for you to bend over, and the easier you make that for people, is the less friction being created, which equals less fatigue. And so I'm pretty stoked of what we have going on with whitewater fishing and the new product. Like I said, we launched 2.5 years ago with UPF gear, so sun shirts, hoodies, woven shirts. Last year in March, we launched our outerwear assortment to keep you dry and keep you warm on the waters. And then we have some new introductions this spring as well. And so the product is a lot of fun because we're all outdoorsmen here, whether we're hunting hard or fishing hard. And then we have the technical expertise to
All right.
actually, I know it looks like a jacket and a bib and it's simple, but there's a lot of art that goes into it and fabric development. And so it's just been a lot of fun, Brian.
There is, and it's the more comfortable you are, the longer you're gonna be able to hang out there in those elements. Whether it's sitting in a tree stand, I got scent blocker, I got scent lock. All of my hunting clothes is the scent lock stuff.
Yeah.
People, does this stuff work or not? I'm like, I don't know. I wear it, and deer walk by me every day, whether I hit them or not. That's a whole different story. But I'm like, they're there. They don't seem to mind, so I'm sold. Works for me. And
Yeah.
I won't go away from it. But I got my Great Lakes Pro suit just a couple weeks ago, and I'll get to try that out this week here finally and getting on the water. And I'm pretty excited to do it. I can't sit still. I had the guide wear. Problem is, I move around a ton, and I jump in and out of the boat. I forget that I'm not 25 anymore, and I'd have to go get a knee drained later in the year, because it doesn't absorb like it used to.
Yeah.
But I fly around and rip the seams and the crotches out because the stuff just isn't stretching, and then it rains like hell. You find out where all these weak spots are, and then eventually, everything just kind of wears and tears anyway. But I put that on. I moved around, and first thing was like, all right, I'm a large, 6 foot. 210 pounds. I need to get I don't like big baggy stuff. I'm just going to get the large regular, I think, and put
Yep.
it on. Is it going to fit over my shoulders? Put it on. And it was like, it's absolutely perfect. This thing this great. I can raise, I can move, and my sleeves don't go like this to me. They don't shoot up, and pockets, everything's just in the right place, and then you got the D rings to hook your Minn Kota remote or something on, or whatever it may be, some pliers. It's just obviously you guys fish and you know what you're doing, and then also you get the input of Chase and Shkurik and those guys on it, and it shows. It's awesome stuff. I'm pretty excited to actually wear clothes, right? I mean,
Well, I'm excited for you to get out there and use it. We do have a lot of internal input, but to your point, between Chase and Gary Parsons have been doing it forever, to Jay and Jason Shakura, to Matt Schiefelbein, to Tommy Chemos. And the reason I bring those names up is I live vicariously. I mean, my wife's just most of my field testing is on my farm or in the shower.
right.
And my wife, she doesn't listen to podcasts, so we're cool. But
right.
I'm like, hey, honey, get in here, and I'm in our big shower, and I'm like, grab my cell phone. I said, I just need to take some pictures of me and run videos. So, there's nothing like a big shower head like this draining down on you. And I'm in there bending over and sitting on the shower bench to taking just gobs of rain over. And I'm like, get that. I want to see how that rain's coming off the hood. And
Yep.
she thinks I'm crazy. But we obviously have a lot of fabric background, which makes it helpful. But real world testing, which I'm pretty confident of, even if we don't put it out there, but we put everything into circulation a year in advance and get some really good feedback. And one of the things that the group of guys I mentioned, they wanted a very clean jacket and bib. So it's tough to make it clean and yet have a lot of function. But if you look at that, Brian, I could put it on you and you look super clean.
Yep.
Yet there's security pockets here, there's security pockets there, there's cargo pockets that are cargos if you want to use them, but if you don't want to use them, you don't know they're there, to hide the waste pockets. And we really try to make them clean. The other thing we did on the Great Lakes Pro, Brian, you'll laugh, it's just my life, I live in it all the time, is people say, well, I got wet. And then we'll say, well, okay, what'd you do? And God, seems weird. Did you have any pockets open? Well, yeah, I don't always close my pockets. And most waterproof garments, if you leave the zippers are waterproof. If you leave them open, they'll collect rain. So what we did in the Great Lakes Pro even is we made the pockets themselves waterproof. So not only are the waterproof zippers, but if you forget to leave your pockets, close your pockets up, and you take water on, you can literally pour a water bottle. You can try it in one of those pockets, and they're taped as well. So you can put a couple of minnows in there if you want to keep them alive, and grab them out and hook them.
That's good, 'cause I do that when I'm in the front of the boat and I don't want to go back and grab any bait. I throw them in the cup holder and I'll just throw them in my pocket and be like, yeah, it's cold out. They live for quite a while, so it's good.
So we put a lot of thought and effort into what we do, and again, when you're out there fishing, one of the things that we talk about a lot on Whitewater Fishing is we have this tagline or this hashtag that says "Brave the Waves," and there's a lot of meaning to that. There's literal and figurative meanings to that. Certainly, we promise to protect you from the sun, the warm. We protect you from the cold, the wind, and the rain. So it's those waves, if you will. But we also know there's other waves that anglers deal with. It could be the current changes. It could be, walleye. I say walleye are like a freaking customer. They'll be on this point this day, and you call them here, and they may be 2 miles away. Yep. They're like a customer. They change their habits and their needs to the angler you're competing against. So our promise, Brian, in the whitewater fishing world is to make sure that you can focus on what you want to do, which is fish. I'm going to come along for the ride. So if you so choose our brand, to keep you warm, to keep you dry, to keep you comfortable, to make sure that you can feel like you're not just bogged down. I love the guide where it's not a poke. I worked 16 years at Cabela's in the corporate office, and I still bleed a little green, if you will.
Yeah.
But again, things have changed and technology's changed. And I think we just brought all together, whether, it's a heated vest. We brought, heated vests have been around forever, not the fishing world, to a heated vest. It's got Primaloft that looks good, that's stylish, it's lightweight and packable, yet you can pump the jams and turn heat on. So we just have a lot in the assortment that I'm excited about, not only where we've been, but where we're going for spring. We have the Great Lakes Pro we brought out. We have a new lightweight fishing pant Brian, if you haven't got any, it won't be too long.
It's in my shopping cart right now, actually.
Okay.
The Prevail Pant. I put it in there this morning because I saw the press release the other day when I got home. I was like, oh, yeah, finally. All right, we got it. We got the pants because I've been wearing some Columbia ones, and I got 2 or 3, and I'm like, I had an old Cabela's one, but I'm like, one of them is getting old, and sometimes I wear it around the campfire, so the ankle's a little bit burned up. And
You'll love that pant. I mean, it's a 90+% nylon pant with a spandex in it. And even though I say nylon, it's not like crunchy nylon. It's very smooth, just beautiful fabric. Yet it has the nylon in there for the toughness. It has side zip vents for dumping heat to pockets. It's just you'll be wearing it. I'm telling you, not only for your trade, but you'll be wearing it barbecue, and it's a beautiful pant. So
I figured that is if that pant is even remotely as flexible as the rain gear, which I'm sure it is, then some. I'm like, I'm sold. Give me some of those pants. So and the torque, right? Is that the vest is called the torque vest? The heated.
Yep, torque heated vest. And the other sleeper that Jay wears a lot on the bass tour is that most guys are wearing rain gear. I would tell you, there's not a lot of guys that are in heavy rain conditions for rain gear, but they like it because it's a laminated garment. Garment equals no wind getting through. So, I mean, I remember the days of us getting feedback from customers. They thought Gore-Tex, which is a laminate, a rainproof laminate, was something to keep warm in, versus what it's meant for is really rainproof. But the bottom line is anytime you can keep the wind off you. So we have a tamer jacket and bib, which is in our assortment, and it's a soft shell, which has great thermal value, and it stops the wind 100%. The only thing that makes it not a rain piece is you can't tape the seams on a soft shell. But I can tell you, I've been in the shower with it as well. Not telling people it's a rain piece, but you can keep boat spray and keep dry. What I like about that is that has great stretch and thermal value as well. And I know Jay wears the bib a lot on the bass tour because he just wants that little bit of protection. So it's a little bit of I'd say a 4-iron, if you will. It's not like a 9-iron or a sand wedge, which I'd equate to the rain pieces that people use. But again, we just took the feedback, and some guys said, I just want thermal. I want good wind stop. I want great stretch. So that soft shell jacket and bib's just another piece of our assortment, if you will, that creates some attributes that aren't being offered in the space today. So I have a lot there. I could talk all day.
I wear those bibs. I wear bibs all day, every day. It's South Dakota. It's blowing. So I even tell clients that are coming out like this weekend, like, it's supposed to be really nice out. I'm like, but bundle warm because the water's 35, 36 degrees. And if there's a 5-10 mile an hour breeze, the air temp's 35, 36 degrees. It's 40 degrees, whatever. I said, only if it is flat, calm, and 50, 60 degrees are you going to be in your T-shirt. I said, if there's any breeze at all, the air temp's not much warmer than that water temp. And bibs, you can always take them off. So it's layers, and with a good set of bibs, that's really all you need. And I keep, a hoodie underneath it, and then the jacket, and that should do it for the day. So it's really just keeping that wind out. And if you turn the bend, and like Lake Oahe, where it looks beautiful, and you turn the corner, you go, that's not. I got a 20-mile ride. You're gonna get soaked. Well, you're ready. You're prepared to get soaked. So you got all the gear to handle it. So,
well, kind of your point. Like we have a heavyweight hoodie we have in our assortment. Between a hoodie and maybe some base layer and a bib, I mean, that is pretty much the core, at least of what I wear probably exclusively. I'll always take the jacket for the ride out, maybe the ride back. If we have to, get in a little bit of, boat splash, I'll put the jacket on. But that's what you need. Layering is, I would tell you, a pretty significant thing that's always been done in the hunt world. Right. And again, that's slowly entering the fishing world as well. Layering is definitely key because you want to feel lightweight and shed as you need to shed or add as you need to add.
Yeah, we're a little behind in the clothing in the fishing world, but you guys are changing that, and I think people are spending a lot longer days, not because they have to, but because they can. They're more comfortable. The technology is enabling us to catch maybe more fish even faster. But now they're like, well, this is so fun. I'm going to stay out here and do it longer and just keep throwing them back all day versus 4 or 5 hours, 1 or 2. And it's like, we're good. Let's go in and go, hit the bar and the barbecue, and we'll try it again tomorrow type thing.
Yeah, right.
And I
Well, I'm
think
pretty
there's a younger generation coming through it as well. So,
well. I think one of the things I learned being here in Michigan. I've been in Michigan for about 8 years now. Is that there is like legit 12-month anglers where I mean think about what we talked about when we started the call of guys being out in Lake Erie in the third week of February. I mean if they're not fishing soft water, they're fishing hard water. And as you know, the Great Lakes, which I think is a great proving ground for inclement conditions. I mean, you see it all here. And so obviously it's not a lot different than the Dakotas. I think clearly I don't think people maybe fish as much off season because when it gets cold there, it gets, cold there and it depends where there's ice lock up. And again, I'm not dismissing, there's just not as many people doing it there. Here there's a lot of folks doing it. So we're excited. We have an insulated suit coming out in fall of this fall as well. So think about much like your Great Lakes Pro, but with zone
yep.
Primaloft insulation, and so we have I would tell you a late fall, early spring, and then if people want to take ice fishing, it's not a float suit, but we kind of went away from that because you just can't. If you've ever had a float suit on, and
Yeah.
I'll tell you, if you're not going because you want to be safe, I tell you buy a float suit. I don't have one, but go buy one.
Yep.
But if you want to be like Corey Springle's one of the Next Bite guys, and Corey, I love Corey because he's a technical nut. He's not a product like he's not a trained product guy, but he's a trained product guy from knowing he uses a lot of brands.
Yep.
And so we're just talking about what's going on in Devil's Lake. He's been testing our new insulated Great Lakes Pro, and he's like, dude, all these guys want it and they like it because it's clean and it's so
Right.
comfortable and has good thermal value. And he said that trend is pretty significant of people just not going down the float thing for ice, and
Right.
where they just want comfort and they want to bend over and get a fish out of the hole and fish on their knees. So we've taken that same philosophy of the Great Lakes Pro, which you have, and brought insulation in it and did some other tricks you'll see here at some point late summer. So again, we continue to evolve and just trying to bring solutions to where there's some problems.
Corey knows what he likes, and if there's something that's not kosher about it, he's got to tell you. So there's no better guy to have on that end of it. He's done it with a lot of products, and a lot of his development and input to Berkeley. They're all home runs. So
yeah, well, that's one thing. Gary and Chase and Corey, kind of back to the Berkeley thing. They understand what they want, but they also understand you have to sell it. Because I can't tell me guides and outfitters in the hunt space, or we all like what we like. And part of the challenge as us as a brand where you're getting input is when you're getting input from people that know, you still got to be able to sell it. It's got to cover broader spectrums than this, the individual. And our challenge is how do you take that input you get from an individual level and validate, I think this is a broader issue that more people can, have benefit from it. So they're great guys to work with, and we're fortunate that they chose to partner with us to do our thing, help us do our thing.
I can only imagine, being in your position, because I do a lot of that for these guys right here, and it's the same deal. There's dozens of people. Here's the prototype rods. Go do this stuff. Fill out these forms. Let us know. It's jerkbait. It's slip bobber. It's casting a crank. It's pitching a jig. It's all of these, right? Trolling rod. Then I'm sure it's this eyelet should be moved, or I like the grip a little bit more like this, but the next guy's like, it's perfect the way it is, don't change anything, and it's another pro, and it's like you guys got to filter through all of this to try to figure out, okay, that I get it, it's not just you, but what is the consensus of all, and what's gonna, and obviously I need to keep the price point, right here. This is my goal price point anyway, because I can hit a broader market now with certain products. Obviously, there's different price points for different buyers, whatever, but I just Ryan teach one of those technical guys over there. I'm like,
sure.
I said, it sucks to be you, man, having to go through and filter all that stuff. Or I forget something, and I'll set up a text email and be like, oh, hey, I screwed up on that one. I got my rods mixed around. It's this way, and didn't want to bother you. And he's like, no, bother me. Please tell me what it is. I want to know, good or bad. Tell me all of it, because we can't fix it if we don't know about it. So
I
Like
always
you,
send my dad a box of camo stuff to Presho because, like, I don't get out as much as I used to, Brian, like on the hunting side. So I try to always wear competition half the time, and I usually wear our prototype stuff that we're coming out for the following
right?
season. So I'm always sending stuff back to Presho, back to my dad. I'm like every March I go through all my hunting stuff, put in boxes, and I mean, I can't say I enjoy it. It's just always a pain because it's like you kind of get a bag set up for your hunting stuff, and
Right.
it's like, oh man, I got this here and that there, and I have a son that likes to hunt fish, and it's just a shit show. I ain't gonna lie.
Right. I told the wife, I'm combining stuff. I'm like, we got to have a garage sale. I'm like, there's way too much stuff hanging down here in my hunting clothing rack downstairs. And I'm like, we don't even wear, and some of the stuff's never even been worn. You know, she's done a lot of photo work for other brands, you know, and so they send it. And I'm like, some of the stuff has tags on it. Some of it's, I'm like, and I'm never going to wear it. I don't need it, or the kids have outgrown it or whatever. It was just a one. I'm like, somebody needs this stuff. Let's just get it out there to, you know, young or new anglers or new hunters for a couple bucks. You can have it. Let's free up some space because I'm going to move someday and I don't like packing and I don't like moving. So the less stuff around, you know, the better. And if that helps somebody else obviously get into the sport and can be comfy. It's not the newest, greatest stuff. You know, that's mine. That's what I'm going to keep. But, you know, in a few years when the newer stuff comes out, all right, we'll pass that on down. So,
Well, we need more young anglers and fishermen out there and hunters and all that. That's definitely there's a lot of competition for their time these days. Hopefully those garments go to big strapping young kids that want to go out and do it. And although there's more money around, Brian, I don't know how you grew
right.
up, and I can't believe some of the money that is these
Yeah,
young kids are finding their hands on. It's crazy.
I know. Yeah, not when I was growing up. I just some buddies came up from hometown and his wife over the weekend for the sports show, and we're talking about some of that and the kids and even their kids are traveling sports, and it's just go go go. I'm like, how? There's no way that would have happened, you know, back in my day. I'm like, there's nobody could afford those hotels and traveling and gas every week and every. I'm like, when did they go to school? You know, and then the boosters and just all the fundraisers. I'm like, there's no way. And my daughter does that with show choir, and they had a big event this week, and they raised a ton of money. But my wife was there from like 7 a.m. till midnight. I'm
Hmm.
like, man, parents weren't doing that stuff when I was
No
little. No
way.
way. They're gonna come to the game, you know, if you're lucky, if they could do that, and then that's it. You know, you're out. Or I was getting rides with other people. It just, yeah, and high school fishing, right? These guys are out there. They're in their dad's or uncle's boats or what have you. But that's huge. You know, Minnesota's
Yeah.
got 250 anglers, you know, per high school event. And now we got college on board, which, I mean, this is all great. Now we got the funnel, you know, to create these guys, which is where a lot of the bass guys are coming right through there. They're like, oh, I've been fishing 5 or 6 years, you know, and us, we're like, my mom went into labor fishing, so I've been fishing that long is the way I like to say it. And I'm like, I didn't learn it that fast, you know, but I also didn't watch cartoons on Saturday morning. I watched, you know, Babe Winkleman and Bill Dance and Hank Parker.
Uh,
So,
Virgil
uh,
Ward and
yeah,
yeah,
Virgil Ward.
these kids have such a huge advantage, and I'm glad. I mean, I'm glad I didn't have to choose between high school sports or high school fishing.
Right. Yeah.
I'm glad it's there now because everyone has different callings, and it's just great to see it that it's happening there and in high schools. And kids are so much smarter. Of course, you remember we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have
Right.
Google. We might have had a trade pub, maybe got a trade pub if
Yep.
you could give it your mom at the grocery store that you can slip one in the sack.
Yep.
But we just didn't have, I mean, you learn from your uncle, your
Yep.
grandpa, maybe your dad, depends if you skipped a generation or not. And yet all the information's out there today. And it's really made a lot of young hunters and anglers really smart about their trade. Not thinking by their age they would know much. So it's I guess good overall though.
Yeah, it is good. It's just it's time. It's the way it is. You have to adjust. And I mean, we waited and couldn't wait for that, you know, in fisherman to come out and that outdoor life. And that's what I'd get for Christmas from my aunt and uncle every year was an updated new subscription, you know. And I'm like, yeah, all right, cool, it's coming again. And they're like, I'll just type it in. There it is. All right, I saw what I needed to see, and off you're running. So good for them. That's just the way it is. That's where we're at. And I mean, we all use it too, so we benefit from it. I mean, just as much. So how did Aaron get started in all this? You
Oh
worked at
man,
Cabela's for a long time, and I mean,
Yeah,
a
I
lot of
think the fire started though kind of back to when I, said growing up on a farm, it was the opportunities, and I know talking about a one percenter, but back in the day, growing up in the late 70s and 80s, and I could jump on my three-wheeler, which no one knows what three-wheeler is anymore.
right.
I could run around and hit stock ponds, and
Yep.
I remember my dad one year bought one of those hard plastic Bass Pro one-man boats that I put
Yep.
my trolling motor on. I used to use my lawn mowing trailer that I used to mow the country cemetery, and I'd throw that
Yep.
on there with my three-wheeler. I'd go stock pond, and so I'd just say at an early age, whether it was trapping or it was calling coyotes or jumping stock ponds and or up on the Missouri River, we just got to do it all because I could hunt any neighbors. They'd know who I
Right.
was, and that's before permission, and so I think the outdoors just was in my blood, Brian. I remember one time my dad didn't take me hunting. He went antelope hunting somewhere, and I remember crying in my bedroom, and that's just how much it meant to me at that age, just being out and about in the outdoors. So, yeah, that's how I got started with the love and the passion. And then, I worked for UPS for about 10 years in sales and technology, and I got an opportunity to start the next part of my career at Cabela. So I had a great, it was pre-public, and had some great days there. Met some, great people that everyone loved the outdoors there. I mean, we're all Uber users, so that's, back to the day of just great quality product that the company came out with. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
that was a great experience. I've been at Nexus now for about 8 years. So once you're in the outdoors, Brian, you probably appreciate this. You just can't get away from it. Because
No.
I don't care if I have a lot of competitive friends, like in,
Oh
in,
yeah.
in competitive brands, and we have this common bond of the outdoors. So you're telling fish stories or hunt stories, and it's a small industry, as you well know. So
Oh yeah.
just
I
great,
mean,
great people.
you're back in the Chris Springer days, Laura Hopelsheimer. I mean,
Oh,
those
sure.
were the people you got to work with back then, and we all know them, and they all are over here now, working for this company and this company. And the people though in the industry, like you said, it's small, all good people,
Yeah.
all like minded, all common interest. I mean, it's just you can go, you get invited to dinner with them, whether it's at ICAST or the Classic or a SHOT Show, and it's just like you know them forever, or you just whether you met them 10 minutes ago or 10 years ago, it's you're right in. You just have those same conversations, and it's just comfortable and
Well, we're in the passion business too. I mean,
right.
who gets to go to work every day? And I know a lot of people love their jobs, and even when I wasn't in outdoor, I loved my job. But to love your job and then to really love your
It
job,
really, yeah,
to and grant, I wish I fished more, hunted more. The business has a ton of demands,
yeah.
but at least we're not selling toilet paper,
No.
which is a great thing that we can say we do.
I heard that plenty over the weekend from old friends that I ran into, being from outside of Lincoln, and Omaha Sports Show was like, yeah, man, you get to live your dream. And I'm like, well, there's things that are good and bad about that. I'm like, you're probably making 3 times as much money as I am at your job. It's like, yeah, but I hate it. I'm like, well, that's the price you pay. I'm like, it's also 80% business and marketing, and and 20% fishing. Because just like you said, there's demands, and I don't get to go fishing every day. Now when guide season's full bore, yeah, maybe it is 5-6 days a week. And it's exhausting as well, because it's not just a 7-8 hour day. That's a 12-14 hour day. What comes on before and what happens after, and then keeping all the other guides and employees and what have you, busy. And I ran into a guy kind of like where do you get started, about the passion. It was my stepdad got me going into walleye fishing real young, but he had met a friend in our little town, and first guy that had a Lund Tyee boat, and so they were buddies, and went fishing with him. And he called right. It would have been, I've seen it right before I graduated, and there was a tournament in Nebraska, Harlan County, and it was on my graduation weekend. He's like, Brian, you want to fish? You want to ask my mom? He's like, can Brian be my partner in this tournament? And he's 30 years older than me. But I've been fishing with him, and my stepdad was gone and moved away, or whatever the case is. And I'm like, yeah, I'm in. I was like, hell no, you're not skipping your high school graduation. I'm like, I can care less. I already graduated. It's good to go. Pick up the paper. I'm going to the tournament, and mom won. I went to my high school graduation. I didn't, but I ran into him this weekend, and he told that story to one of my buddies who was standing there and like, yeah, you were bit by the bug. I'm like,
Yeah, that's
yes,
a lot of work guiding. It's, from your equipment maintenance to just being ahead of everyone in the morning to cleaning up after everyone, getting organized to dealing with, I'm sure, most good customers, some that are just don't know what to do. I remember we used to have pheasant hunters that couldn't hit anything and just
yeah.
hit. So I give you a lot of credit because that's a grind. I mean, I'd love to do it, but I'm not sure I could guide or outfit. That's just a lot of demands.
It is. That's why I don't ice guide. And I hear to those guys, I said, you guys really got it because it's cold and your stuff's breaking all the time, and you got to be on available, even if they're in sleeper shacks to go. Propane runs out middle of the night. They run out of beer. They run out of minnows. Whatever it is, you're you're the runner. Right? You're trying to. You're checking up on them. And I mean, I'm sure. It's still 8, 9 o'clock. You want to check up on them at night. And I just came back from Lake the Woods, and that's what they did. They showed up. We all good for the night. Okay, we're going in. Here's numbers on the wall. If something happens, okay, but we'll be back at 6 or something in the morning, and it's the same guys, and they're going in to clean fish and eat and take care of whatever, and they're only home for barely enough time to get 6, 7 hours sleep, and then they're back at it. So, yeah,
It's glorified babysitting at the end of the day. Let's just call it what it is.
Yep, it is. But it's a business where you get to do what you love, and you get to you get to be around the best people like yourself in the industry, and you get to use the best products out there, and you guys are all great at taking everybody's feedback on it, and just making it better. And I love watching how everything, the clothing, the gear, the rods, the reels are all, evolving. I got 7, right? We got new fishing reels out this year. These things are phenomenal. I'm like, it just seemed like the reels were reels, and I haven't noticed a whole lot over the years. And I get these, I'm like, okay, the reel is not a reel. Here's the difference. This is perfect. How it fits in your hand and stuff. And there's just the technology. There's a lot of smart people out there.
Yeah, for sure. I certainly appreciate you entertaining our brand, Brian. I know there's a lot of choices out there, and I'll be interested as you continue to spend time in our gear. And we're pretty humble by nature, and we know that there are hard dollars that people give up, even as yourself, to give up to get into new gear. And I just can't appreciate the support you've given us so far. And hopefully we don't let people down. I'm sure we won't. I appreciate you taking a chance on us, Brian, and obviously investing some time in this conversation today is important as well. That I certainly appreciate for sure.
Oh, yeah, you bet. Like I said, I'm finally looking forward to putting the suit on and doing stuff, and I'll be hitting submit here in my shopping cart on the Whitewater website real quick to get my Prevail Pants, en route. So, hey, as we wrap this up, is there something you can think of, a little tip nugget, hunting, fishing, just to leave, with the listeners, to moving from young guys, young gals coming up, or seasoned veterans, or people looking to get back into it?
Yeah, I thought a little bit about it, but and this comment comes a little bit from my age. I'm over 50 now, and I will tell you, I've had a lot more fun the last 10 years hunting and fishing by just realizing that everyone can't do it, and there is some bliss in just being in the outdoors. I would tell you, I've been really mad at things for a long time in my life. I wanted to kill that deer. I was just, crazy when I went fishing, that I was moving and slicing and dicing and getting frustrated. I would just contend that as you get older, you certainly appreciate a lot of the smaller things in life. So I would just say my only tip would be when you're having a bad day, not getting on the fish, take a breath and understand it's a great kingdom God's created for us, and this wildlife and the resource we get to be around is a pretty special thing. So I just say, on those days of frustration, just remember not everyone can do it, and it's a great resource just to take a breath. You're not in the office, you're not doing your day job, you're out there to have fun. So take a breath and enjoy yourself.
That you couldn't have said it any better, and you're right. I see that with the forward-facing sonar, especially. I look at guys and I say, "Hey, just look up once in a while, man. Just look around you. You're you're missing the big picture here. I get it, but it's not about winning. It's, it was a Bay Winkleman or somebody who said it's not rather the catch or the kill, it's the being in the great outdoors. And it's taking in what God's given us here and just sit back. As we get older, we appreciate things much more. And so for young guys and gals out there listening, just take a step back sometimes and put it on spot lock, eat a sandwich, take a lunch.
Spot lock.
Right?
Spot. Who's that? I mean,
yep. I haven't had an anchor in a boat forever. So put it on spot lock and enjoy the day. So awesome. Good stuff, Aaron. We appreciate you coming on, man. That is this good stuff, folks. We'll put the Whitewater link down here below in comments. Head over to their website, check them out, follow them on social, and stay in tune with all their pros they got out there. Jason's crushing it on the Elite Series. You going to the Classic? You guys going to be down there?
Yep.
You got a booth down there, or you just?
Oh, we'll just go down there and support Jay, and I'll be bopping around. So if you're down there, I'd love to hook up with you.
I will be down there. I'll be in the Seaguar booth, the St. Croix booth, and everywhere I can possibly be, taking it in. I've never been to a Classic, and this one's only about an 8-hour drive. So I'm like, that's it. I'm going to run down there quick. So hanging a couple of there's a handful of walleye guys that we're coming down to take in some of this bass stuff for a while, and
it's not a lot different anymore, Brian. I tell you what, the way
our futures. That's why
walleye, right?
Yep, we're looking to the next steps over here. We'll see. I don't know. None of us are on the cutting edge of youth by all means. So we're just taking it in.
Take care of the fine folks of South Dakota for me, and even a farm kid from South Dakota, precious South Dakota, can make it in the outdoors. So if that can happen, I'll tell you, if anyone wants to get in the outdoors, I'd always be willing to talk. So appreciate again the support, and check out whitewaterfish.com and follow our social, and be part of the excitement that we have going on here. So hopefully if I get back to Sioux Falls, that family there in Sioux Falls yet, hopefully I can see in person either there or down Oklahoma. So appreciate it, Brian.
Awesome. You bet. Thanks, Aaron. And all you that are following along, watching this here on YouTube, you'll find this over on the Walleye Guys Facebook page, and you can listen to it on any of those podcast platforms: Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, and I'm probably missing one, but there's a lot of them out there. But it's there. So when you're on your ride, driving to the Classic, or on these long road trips, these are the podcasts to listen to. So thanks for tuning in, folks, and thank you, Aaron, and everybody following along. We'll see you next time.